Imagine a flood so powerful that it dissolves the boundaries between you and everyone else. That is Gonggong, the dwarf planet that we're going to be exploring today, and how you can work with this energy, how it can unlock deeper understanding of who you are as an individual. And of course, it wouldn't be a conversation with me and Liz if we didn't bring in essential oils that will support you on that journey as well. So today, let's dive into another dwarf planet, Gonggong. How are you today, Liz?
Well, I'm fascinated to see where this conversation will go, Adam, because when I saw the oils that you chose for the aromatherapy blends, I was like, how did he get to this? So I'm really fascinated with this. And I have to say, it's not a dwarf planet that I had really studied very much till we decided to do this. So I'm interested to know what you know about the Gonggong mythology and where we can go with it.
Well, one of the things I really love about dwarf planet astrology is the naming of them, because all of our traditional planets that we know so well, they're all Roman gods, whereas the dwarf planets have been named after different deities from different traditions all around the world. Gonggong, he's a Chinese god. He's a Chinese water god or ocean god. He's often depicted as being the upper half of a man, often with red hair and a red beard, and then a big serpent's tail. So he's kind of associated with serpents and dragons. Now, in this, the kind of the main story that you hear about Gonggong, basically he got upset with the fire god. He wasn't happy how things were, and ended up in the end banging his head against these mountains. And the name of them is kind of escaped my memory off the top of my head, but
Something
that
else.
so go on.
Yeah. So the fire god was Zhurong, and yeah, Mount Buzu, which is one of the 8 pillars that is said to hold up the skies.
Yes, and I think now they're a little bit wonky, and it said because Gong Gong rammed his head into that. And so he kind of represents, I think, if you're trying to understand the symbology of Gong Gong as we go into the astrology of it, some describe him as kind of having a combination of that transformative power of Pluto, but also that unconscious or subconscious aspects of Neptune. So we've got this water energy and this transformational energy. And I would even bring in the Tower card from the tarot. So one of my phrases I really love about Gong Gong is that sometimes we need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough, and really embracing those emotional struggles that we may go through in our lives and not kind of thinking, well, this is just too hard and it's sending me backwards. Sometimes we need to go through those challenges to have new experiences, to have new discoveries. And I think Gong Gong really taps into that energy.
Yeah, I agree. And in my own work, I've really been concentrating on doing a lot of sort of priestess work around spiritual awakening fatigue. And so I've been looking at other people that are making content around that. And I noticed everyone's talking about these exhausting energy shifts. And I was like, it's not just me. Everybody's feeling it. And then when I looked at the fact that we are in Gonggong retrograde at the moment, we will be till the beginning of December, I was like, well, that's interesting. What kinds of energy shifts are we expecting to see? And as you quite rightly said, he's a water god, so we would expect to see lots of stuff around water, about the raising of the water, about pollution of water. Actually, that's a real big thing around by me at the moment. We're taking a lot of things to the government because there's an awful lot of pollution in our local rivers. So that was interesting. But I think also the water element, of course, is emotions and this huge outpouring of emotions. And the fact that Gong Gong is in Pisces, I don't think that you said that the cycle, the orbit of Gong Gong is enormous. Is it 533 years, Adam? I think it moves 1 degree a year, so very, very slowly. And then so when it goes into retrograde, we have quite a long period. I think it was from June the 5th to December 25th, or there's a day or two there. So half the year in retrograde, and we have these enormous times of outpouring of compassion, but also maybe compassion fatigue, that everybody's like, oh gosh, political correctness gone mad. Are we? And this idea, because in its true form, in its sort of positive form, Gonggong is about the huge radical compassion of love. The reason why he went into battle with the fire god is because the fire god had been ruling the heavens in a really sort of what's it, exploitative manner, and he had been um, robbing all the other gods and making rules that served nobody but himself, and that's why the water god became absolutely furious. Well, I think we can almost like look and go, yeah, I kind of see that whole thing with the exploitative manner. And what was interesting actually when I was watching the telly yesterday, there's a tremendous TV program called The Hack, which is a drama that's been done about a scandal that happened sort of 90s, early 20th century in, sorry, 200s, no, 2000s, early 2000s, when the newspapers were hacking all the celebrities, the royalty, etc., in this country, and it's the fight to bring them to justice. And I thought, gosh, that's like a direct correlation of this huge rage, this righteous rage against this awful thing that was being done on a really big scale, you know. So I thought that was really interesting. So looking at it from a societal point of view was fascinating, but also I think looking at it from the personal point of view, that since it's been discovered 2006, Adam, is that right, around about 2006, there's been a massive awareness around the idea of psychological boundaries, whether that be those people who are empaths, and you know how difficult an empath's life can be, that they take on everybody else's stuff. That's fairly new knowledge, and likewise the fascination and the knowledge around how does one deal with a narcissist. Again, that's quite new knowledge, somebody who really smashes down your boundaries. Do you think those sort of points of view? And the other thing that struck me was the new awareness around people who have difference of sensitivity. So, for example, like the boundaries are different for people like myself and Helen Nagle-Smith. We both have synesthesia. Our boundaries between things are different. But then people who have autism, for example, have difference of sensitivity, and so this awareness of, well, not everybody experience sensitivity or boundaries in the same way. I think that's been a fascinating development since the naming of the planet, and maybe that's a societal thing that's worth observing.
So as we've been talking about these dwarf planets, the dwarf planets kind of help open our consciousness to a greater level. So do you kind of feel that as we work with Gong Gong and understand Gong Gong, it is kind of being aware of those boundaries, where they exist and where they don't exist, and how they can be quite fluid, and maybe we can't kind of be so structured as maybe we have been in the past?
Yeah, or also I think that is true, that boundaries are shifting. I think also from a psychological point of view, your own awareness around your boundaries, and how comfortable do I feel with that, and am I going to do the work on making my own like psychological work around boundaries different? So am I going to have better boundaries? Am I going to bring my boundaries down? What tests my boundaries? You know, what are the triggers that are able to break that down? um but yeah, also like psychic boundaries. I mean, what's interesting, of course, is this is happening as we're supposedly going into the age of Aquarius, where everybody will have this new way of communicating. It will all be about the collective rather than the individual, that we will be more spiritual aware, we will all be sort of evolved, is the idea that everybody's trying to work towards. And necessarily for that to happen, everybody needs to think about their boundaries and like redefining what that means, to be able to exist in that new reality.
Very much so. And I wonder whether, before the discovery of Gonggong and that bringing of that dwarf planet's energy into our reality, whether, it's always dangerous to assume that the past was a simpler time, but whether people were that aware of boundaries or that was kind of a conversation that happened, or were boundaries less considered? Does that make sense?
I think that probably the word has been is kind of just like the definition of boundaries, but I think everybody has always thought about, well, you know, are they overstepping with me, or
Mm.
and certainly one of the things that I've been most like acutely aware of in my own spiritual work and my working for the Aromatic Mystery School is there's very little teaching around psychic boundaries now. But if you look back in like Rudolf Steiner, Dion Fortune, even people like Hildegard of Bingen, Teresa of Avila, they all talk about how we can how they're like making a way to fortify the spiritual field using a variety of methods. So certainly I can trace it back to medieval times, but probably it's that word boundary, isn't it? That's new.
Yeah, true. Well, one thing I really love that you're pointing out is this kind of how Gong being a water god, so water being the element of emotions and the heart, became dissatisfied with the god of fire. Now, when we look around the world, where we see many people becoming upset with their ruling governments or their ruling leaders who seem to be trying to assert power without that compassion for other people and being considerate of other people. So it's almost as though Gong is reminding us of that need to listen to the needs of the masses or of the other rather than just ourselves.
Yeah, and I mean, you explained that he was like he had the body of a man and the tail of a serpent, copper-haired. He was a copper-haired creature, like a basilisk or a dragon. And these are elemental forces, and the elemental forces are the forces that balance the world, that they hold the world in balance. And actually the reason for the mythology in the first place is this is the Chinese understanding of, well, why does the sun rise in the east, set in the west, and why do rivers flow east? So what he'd done was he'd had this enormous battle with the fire god. He'd lost the battle. This is quite interesting to me, that this is a god that lost the battle, and in sheer frustration he smashed his head against Mount Buju and smashed it open and threw open the whole celestial realm, and everything went into chaos. And then the goddess Nuwa mended the broken sky, and she used a giant turtle's legs and the stones of five colours. Adam, I do think that that's a conversation to have at a later time. The stones of five colours is what she used to mend the sky, and she restored cosmic stability. But I think that the key thing to understand within the Gonggong mythology is that it was never the same, that he had this explosion, huge amounts of turmoil happened. The goddess Nuwa was able to come and do some restoration, but the battle had completely changed the status quo, and it would never be the same again. And I think that is really interesting. And I do think, like, if you're doing sort of spiritual work, if you're a priest or a priestess and you're in that situation where you're just like, I know something's coming through, and trust me, I know this from experience, that it's awful when you can't actually get it through, and then suddenly there's this smack against Mount Buju and everything's thrown up in the air, and you're like, okay, I understand it now, but I'm not really sure that I like it. This really affects everything that I believed in. It's a really good analogy of spiritual awakening, awareness, and what comes next.
Mm-hmm. I really love the kind of the day-to-day lesson that Gong brings about this idea of how we tackle emotionally challenging circumstances. A lot of the time when something is challenging, we shy away from it. And it reminds me of this philosophy of choose your heart. So, if we choose to exercise, that's hard. So the alternative is choose not to, and you end up having ill health later on. Same with food. Same with, do we have that conversation with our partner or do we keep the peace? Each one is either going to cause difficulty up front or difficulty later. And I think the idea of embracing the hard and embracing these emotionally challenging times as we go through them, the quicker we go through them, we get those, as I said, we have to have those breakdowns to have those breakthroughs. A really great lesson I love, or a bit of a statement from the modality of access bars, is when something what you perceive to be challenging or negative is happening, is to ask, what is the blessing or what is the lesson that's happening in this? And I know there are many different spiritual beliefs that when something is challenging, instead of drowning in the ocean of the emotional upheaval, looking and using as your navigational tool, what's the breakthrough that's available? What's the lesson that's available for you? And by tuning into this guidance of Gonggong, rather than, there are a lot of emotionally challenging things, but maybe these are all happening to bring greater lessons, greater awareness, and, change things from how they were before. Because for one reason or another, things can't remain the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I definitely think this idea that things cannot stay the same is a big theme with it. And I do like choose your heart. I read that the other day and I thought that was good as well.
Mm.
From my point of view, I think, well, I was thinking, well, what if I were to kind of try and want to invoke Gonggong in my spiritual practice? I think it would be for a couple of reasons. The first might be that I was very involved in my own thoughts and my own feelings, and somebody else was hurting and my anger was getting in the way. And so this idea of radical compassion, as in like you take yourself right out of the equation and you just like think about what is the best way to heal all of these beings, all of these entities. And to me, the only oil that I could really come up with that would be helpful for that would be rose. And I thought, well, boring, because we know how to do that. And really that would be that's a manifestation of Venus, right? Or maybe Kuan Yin. But this is different. So why else would I want to be able to invoke him? And I thought that probably the time when I would want to speak to Gonggong the most would be when he was in retrograde, and chances are that I was feeling very much like, I don't know. Well, you know my expression. What's mine? What's yours? All of this stuff of the merging of the different people's emotions flooding in. And I think that the algorithms make that worse these days, that you'll think, well, it's telling me what I'm thinking. Was I thinking that before? So being able to actually go back and say, okay, so what is mine, what is yours, and be able to establish better, stronger psychic boundaries. And I thought, right, okay, so that's where I'm going to go with this. And so I decided that probably my best oils to work with that would be celery seed and juniper, and to try and build up that. I got to think. So tell me when you can see it.
Oh, take it back just a smidge. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
Yeah. So I thought, right, okay, so I'm going to actually, given that we're in this situation at the moment, and I am kind of feeling that, and I'm feeling kind of really quite exhausted from the energy shift, so I'm going to start using this. And I found this really good this week. So I used 3 drops of juniper, 2 drops of celery seed essential oil, because I adore that for emotional boundaries, and 1 drop of myrtle, like as the sentinel, to kind of protect anything that's coming in and going out. And I found that gorgeous, and I've just been using that as an aroma pendant around my neck. And it's quite nice. You wouldn't have to worry that much about it for pregnancy. You wouldn't want to use it in pregnancy, sorry. Otherwise, anybody can use that really, and easy to use. So that was my thinking about that. Where else did you go with it?
So just to kind of clarify on that blend, so can you give me examples in life of when someone would reach for that blend exactly?
Yeah, so I think generally, I think that a lot of people at the moment who are doing spiritual work potentially feel very exhausted by all the energy shifts that are happening. And I think part of conserving your own energy, there's often quite like holes, leaks of energy that are going out, and you can do as much energy work as you like, but it's like putting water into a watering can if you're not careful and you're not doing some like protection. So to me, I've been using this because I feel like my energetic field is being influenced by the algorithm because it's going, you believe this, and I'm thinking, do I really believe this? But also people around me. There's quite a lot of energetic vampires. The more spiritual work you do, the more light that you project, the more of those go, hi, shall I come and feed? No, thank you. So that can also be very good for like an energetic vampires. But also if you're just like watching the news and you just go, just can't take it because it's just hurting my heart so much. Everything is so aggressively difficult right now, to go, okay, yes, but you can't influence that. All you can do is keep projecting light. This is a good way to protect that energy field so that you can say, I am going to keep projecting light and I'm not going to get involved in the other stuff right now.
Sorry to interrupt for just a moment. I hope you're enjoying this episode of Sixth Sense. Now, you're probably getting rather excited about essential oils, and you might be tempted to go out and just grab some. But did you know the essential oil world is not regulated, and a lot of what it says on the label is not governed by anyone? A fun fact, which is not so fun, is that 75% of all oils that are sold as pure, natural, or organic lavender are not even from a plant. So, how do you know what's real? Well, I went looking for that question a long time ago, and I found doTERRA to be a really reliable source of high quality essential oils. They don't just test their oils themselves, but at the end of the process, they have an independent third party verify and double check their oils to make sure that you are getting what nature intended purely from the plant. They also source where nature intended the plants to grow as well. If you want to grab hold of some essential oils from doTERRA, then I offer a discount code, and this is available no matter where you are in the world. Now, I don't want everyone to get essential oils. I want everyone to use essential oils. So when you become one of my customers, you get access to me and my VIP education platforms, ongoing discounts, ongoing freebies, live classes in all time zones all around the world, and so much more. So if you're interested in getting some essential oils that you know are really from nature, and this is important not only physically, but metaphysically as well, please reach out in the links below.
Let me talk a little bit about kind of placement of Gonggong. As we mentioned, Gonggong's journey or orbit around the sun is quite lengthy. So basically, if we're working back from the year 1900, that's when Gonggong until around 1938 was in Capricorn. So you can see how upheavals and maybe the way we worked and labor and jobs and different things like that. Between 1938 and 2008 was in Aquarius. So you see big changes in the way that communities, travel became. We got to know other cultures and other communities, and we became kind of a smaller world over that period of time. And now, since you were saying before 2008 onwards, Gonggong is in Pisces. So we can look at that as more a generational thing and how all the people have changed in those times. But where we can kind of get individualistic about it is the house. So Gonggong could be in any of the houses, and the houses rule different aspects of life. So, for example, for me, Gonggong is in my ninth house, which rules kind of expansion in different ways of like tertiary education, of long distance travel. And so sometimes there can be some emotional upheavals that lead to new understandings in that way. And interesting that, I'm always in my travels and in my work, I'm always kind of learning these new things and new ways of thinking, and that kind of really fits with Gonggong. In fact, for those that love astrology, my Gonggong's right smack bang conjunct with my moon. So there's a real kind of those emotional upheavals for me. I think I feel really, really hard. So for me, I wanted to come up with a trio of oils that I could kind of work with to help myself and to help other people to navigate through those times when we feel that we're underwater, to help bring us up to air. And I almost think that the influence of Gonggong sometimes can be quite violent. And if we've ever been dunked in the ocean, where you get pulled under the water and then you come up, I think that can be almost the influence of Gonggong. So one of the oils that I chose is I chose one of the eucalyptuses, and I got really specific on this one. Its Latin name is Eucalyptus radiata, but it's also known as narrow leaf peppermint gum. Now, to be honest with you, when I smell Eucalyptus radiata, and I'd be interested on your input here as well, is I don't really smell much of a mint flavor. It does kind of have a little essence of mint, but it really is that kind of eucalyptusy aroma. And we know that our eucalyptus oils help to clear away anger and they clear away confusion. So it's a really powerful oil with that. And with that peppermint kind of influence in it, it gives a bit more clarity as well. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And well, when I come to do, I put all your oils together in a blend earlier, and I did try them before, and it felt like my head went bang. It was really exciting. But yeah, I think Radiata is, well, I think it's a much softer oil, full stop, isn't it? I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we can continue on with a bit of a mint theme. Again, I didn't just kind of go, and this is the thing, when we're working with the dwarf planets, we're going into higher realms of consciousness. We won't always use just our general basic or common oils. So I actually chose a mint, but I chose Japanese peppermint, or Mentha canadensis. Is it canadensis? Is how you would pronounce it?
Canadiensis.
Canadiensis. Yes. So I know it as Japanese peppermint, but I nickname it Epiphany Mint. I find it its menthol level is very high, like our regular peppermint, but I find that it's a bit more crisp and clean and refreshing. And I love working with it for those kind of new insights. So if we think now we've got this narrow leaf peppermint gum, clearing away the confusion, getting rid of the anger, and then we've got the Japanese peppermint coming in to really help us to come through that breakdown and have that breakthrough, those new discoveries, and realize that we have to dive deep and honor our emotions and listen to our emotions and listen to other people's emotions in order for us all to have that selfless compassion that you're talking about and kind of evolve as a global tribe here on this planet. So I really like the idea of Japanese peppermint as well.
Gorgeous. Yeah, so in the recipe I've written it as Mentha arvensis. I think I am. That is right. That's the same plant, yeah?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Japanese corn mint. Yeah, such a like ferociously strong chemistry. It's not an oil that I work with very much. All the oils that you've chosen are way too stimulating for me. But I think the idea of, right, I feel underwater and I really need my brain to break open, these oils would definitely do it. What's your third one?
The third one is Chinese wintergreen, which I believe is probably one of the most popular wintergreens that people use. I also work with Nepalese wintergreen, which is a little bit softer and it's quite cute because it's pink. It's got a bit more heart feel. But what I love about the energy of the wintergreens is that aspect of surrendering and that flow. You know, we use wintergreens for the physical body to help relieve tightness and inflammation in the body. And so as we work with it spiritually, it's going to allow us to not hold on to old ways of being, to surrender, to get rid of that control freak within all of us and just flow. So when we kind of break them into 1, 2, 3, the narrow leaf peppermint gum gets rid of the anger, it cools us down, the Japanese peppermint brings the epiphanies, and then we've got that kind of surrender into the new way of being with the Chinese wintergreen.
Oh, the only thing I would say is these are all very cold oils. And so if you were I think if I wanted to like have a warmer disposition towards somebody, I would leave all of these oils aside. But I think that from the mental clarity point of view, I think it's excellent. So put it into a blend. I will say that. Are we in? Are we in?
Yep, you're in.
So to clarify, Chinese wintergreen is wintergreen, and yeah, so putting them all together, my goodness me, it really is like somebody's just explodes your brain. So we've got 1 drop of Japanese, I put peppermint because I couldn't get it in, peppermint, 1 drop of peppermint gum, so that's Eucalyptus radiata, and then 1 drop of wintergreen essential oil. I put it into olive oil because I'm lazy, but any carrier oil would do. So because wintergreen is very, very blood thinning because of all the methyl salicylates, you're going to have to be careful with this if you have any blood issues. So fantastic for somebody like me who is a thrombophiliac and you need to thin the blood, but you need to be very careful if you're already on blood thinners because you're asking the liver to do 2 lots of the same thing and it'll screw your meds. And likewise, if you have a platelet clotting disorder, haemophilia or something like that, then you would want to be really careful with this because this is going to make your blood even thinner. And also wintergreen, we don't want to use this in pregnancy. So you could use this like on an aroma pendant if you didn't want to use it on a rollerball. But I quite liked it, and I haven't got my rollerball now. Flipping heck, I thought I was so prepared. But just all I did was because I do like wintergreen on the top of my head anyway, and so just 1 little drop, and my brain went, "Hi, let's do this." It's a fascinating blend, yeah, but very, very, very stimulating. For goodness sake, do not do this before bedtime.
Yeah, no, it'd definitely be a day one, or when you are looking for those epiphanies and those breakthroughs, and not when we're trying to wind down. It's definitely a wind up. I think I would actually be more inclined to diffuse this combination rather than apply it.
Yeah.
But in those times, probably when you are needing that clarity, when you're like, why is this happening to me? Why is this so hard? What's the purpose of this? Those types of things would be really great. And then going to your chart and looking at where Gonggong is, and that's where you gain greater understanding of how you get through these big upheavals and where in your life these upheavals kind of come. And the joy of AI. I don't think AI, when it comes to dwarf planets, is spot on, but it can start to give you a few insights because this dwarf planet astrology is cutting edge. The planets were only discovered all after 2000, and so we've had hundreds of years to work out what Venus and Mars and even Uranus and Neptune mean, type of thing. But this is brand new. AI is not quite on it yet, but start to journey. There's some great authors out there, Alan Clay, Sue Clients. They're really great at looking at what they write and get some insights. And it's about getting better understanding of how you navigate through this world in this new era, this age of Aquarius, and how the essential oils can help you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There isn't much written to be able to draw on. So if anybody watches this video who knows more about Gonggong mythology, we'd absolutely love you to put stuff in the comments so this becomes a place to come and learn from. That would be fantastic. I just want to add one more blend to the mix. I had the same sort of idea as Adam, that I wanted to talk about this breakthrough with creativity. And I think you kind of came at it from like feeling underwater as like an emotional breakthrough with brain. But I came at this like as a writing breakthrough. If anybody's interested in this, can you see?
Yep.
So I liked the idea of basil because I felt like basil's probably the closest energy, I think, to it. The basilisk and the idea of get out of your head and just get on with it rather than the procrastination. It really does have that energy of feeling like you're being bashed over the head, to be honest. A drop of cinnamon bark, again, this huge warm energy, and then a drop of clary sage. I put in a tablespoon of olive oil, and underlined tablespoon, because of course maximum dilution of cinnamon bark is tiny, 0.07%. So we don't want to irritate the skin. And again, you would not want to use that in pregnancy. So I thought that was quite a nice diffuser blend, but again, you could put it onto the skin if you wanted to. And for me, these ones where you're doing sort of brain work, I would put it on the back of my head in that little nook. You see there's like a cup, isn't there, at the base of the skull, so that you're rubbing it onto the top of the spine where the spinal cord meets the brain stem. So really fast access into the brain, so you can start working on the limbic system, help opening up those parts of learning, memory, creativity straight in there.
I love that for sure. Go throw a random question at you. We talked last week a little bit about how some astrologers have proposed that the true ruler of the sign Libra is Eris. Now, I'm not going to propose that Gonggong is a true ruler of any of the zodiac signs because, once we allocate Eris to Libra and Virgo to Ceres, every zodiac sign has now got their own individual ruler. But what zodiac sign do you feel Gonggong is most related to?
Well, it seems, I mean, that's really speaking to my ego, but it seems Cancerian to me, this whole thing of, well, but also, I don't know, maybe Pisces. It's definitely a water sign, isn't it?
Yeah, I was leaning towards because of that kind of breakthrough in that cycle. That I feel you're going very much connecting with that aspect of Gonggong and that compassion, where I'm really leaning into that mental breakthrough aspect of Gonggong. So I was leaning towards water sign, but Scorpio for that
Scorpio,
psychological
that is brilliant,
transformation.
isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I always say Scorpios for tears that are too deep to be cried, and maybe, I guess that is probably true. So that's quite nice. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So in summary, how would you summarize why would we lean into and want to understand our own Gonggong astrology, and what things would be happening in our lives when we might want to reach for Gonggong and the oils and blends we've discussed?
So I'm not really sure how to answer the Gonggong astrology. I might throw that back at you. But in terms of when you would want to use the essential oils, I think that when you are struggling with boundaries, when you are struggling with compassion, or from the other side of the coin, when you are over, like, tidal wave of compassion comes over you and you're like, I'm sinking under this. I think boundaries and compassion are the main things, but also, as you say, this idea, like, I can feel everything flooding in, but it's just not going anywhere, it's not adding up, and I just can't make it into anything. I can't make anything into anything concrete, and so banging your head against a brick wall from that point of view. Talk to me about when would you like to lean into your astrology?
I think whenever you're asking yourself the question, why is this challenging circumstance happening to me? Understanding your Gonggong astrology would give some insights there. But I also feel that why is this happening to me gives you, by leaning into the Gonggong teachings and the Gonggong mythology, that this is happening for a reason. Because if you don't have challenges, just like muscles must be torn and injured in order to grow, we must have these emotional reckoning periods in our lives for us to discover new things. So I think Gonggong teaches us to appreciate the hard and to honor the hard rather than drown in the hard.
Nice. I like it.
Well, as we mentioned in the last episode when we explored Eris, we're delving into brand new territory, and the dwarf planet astrology is something that hasn't been tapped much. And of course, we're bringing in our love for essential oils because we know no matter what is happening up in the heavens, Mother Earth is here to support us with our beautiful oils as well. So we love your feedback. Please share below. Have we untapped something? Have we opened something? Can you share something about Gonggong? All these different questions. Keep the conversation going in the comment section. We'll be back next week, and we're going to dive into another dwarf. Which one? Well, you'll find out in 7 days. Don't have a breakdown because you might have a breakthrough. Until then, take care and blessed be.
I'm Elizabeth Ashley, UK Director for the National Association of Holistic Aromatherapy and founder of the Aromatic Mystery School, where essential oils meet the deeper more mystical side of healing. Here you'll explore the spiritual, emotional, and energetic dimensions of plants and learn how to weave them into your own rituals and well-being practices. If you're ready to work in a way that nourishes both your soul and your senses, join us at the Aromatic Mystery School. The link's right below.